We're back with one of the most significant days in court yet in Donald Trump's coup case, because Jack Smith thinks it's important enough to secure the fairness of the case and the plan he has to try to present his evidence and convict Donald Trump and then possibly send him to prison, that he needs this Trump gag order. So that went to the appeal today. We have the audio from it. We don't usually get that kind of thing, so we have a lot more to get into here. And as Maya and I and David were just discussing, a big part of this case is not just the gag order, which is procedural in the trial. It's the underlying violence and election crimes that are being adjudicated throughout the country. You heard me mention people are presumed innocent unless they plead guilty and get convicted. Then they become convicts. And in Georgia, not the D.C. case, we have seen that happen on some of the smaller offenses. Indeed, right now we have the former lawyer for one of Donald Trump's co-defendants in that RICO case. You may remember former Trump attorney Kenneth Chesebro, cited not only in Georgia, but also in this Jack Smith case. I've told you about these overlaps. He's co-conspirator 5, unindicted in the DOJ case because of the fraudulent slates of presidential electors that were being used to, quote, obstruct the certification. That's in the federal Jack Smith Trump indictment. Chesebro played that role on those electors. We know that. He's convicted for a version of that in the Georgia case where he struck a plea deal. Now, we don't know whether he'll remain an unindicted co-conspirator in the federal case or ultimately, having pled to similar issues in Georgia, face further charges. We have a very special guest as we look at all these issues together, and we always try to understand all of it with the people who are involved if they are willing to come out and take questions in public. That's what journalism is, and I'm thrilled to tell you that the former lawyer for Kenneth Chesebro there in Georgia, Manny Arora, is with us tonight, as is former prosecutor David Kelly. Manny, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me again.
Absolutely. You're close to this. You have a perspective on some of this. First, what did you think of the arguments that Trump's defense lawyers were making today? Do you think they had any merit?
I think a lot of this that hasn't been discussed is the gag order stuff is a little bit of a stall tactic, because in real criminal trials, and I've been doing this for 30 years or so, and we do a couple of trials a year, gag orders are essentially there to protect the jury pool so evidence doesn't get out or statements don't get made that could taint the jury pool and delay the process even longer. If someone truly makes a threat to a witness or a prosecutor, it's not a gag order issue. It's not a criminal contempt. You just revoke their bond and you put them in jail. And that's happened to several of our clients with very innocuous statements that the government found out about on social media, and they locked them up. And so while we're talking about these gag orders...
Let me jump in and say, if you're going in that direction, which is interesting, then do you think that anything Trump has done here in public regarding people like Mike Pence, Bill Barr, and Meadows rise to that level?
I don't think so. As the Court of Appeals essentially said, that these are people that their testimony isn't going to change, nothing's going to be different, versus somebody like the young woman that was the election worker. That person could actually be impacted. So you have to sort of take it on a case-by-case basis. But gagging somebody isn't necessarily, or in my experience, ever been the issue. You just revoke their bond and you put them in jail if you think they've threatened somebody.
David?
Well, look, I don't disagree with what he said, but as I said at the outset here, this is a collision between protected political speech and the sanctity of a criminal proceeding, which is not usual. I think that if he were to violate the gag order, that yes, it would be also, I think, a violation of his conditions of release that could justify his imprisonment. But this case is a little bit, as much as Judge Chutkan wants to say, we're going to treat this like any criminal case, the bottom line is it's not really, because of the fact that you have this parallel track on which happens to be a presidential campaign, in which he's the front runner. And then you have this collision. So it doesn't make it as simple as we're used to dealing with, which I agree. You violate, you go and threaten a witness implicitly or otherwise, you're gone. Not so much here.
Yeah. I mentioned Bill Barr, among others, and I take Mr. Arora's point about who's the person we're dealing with and what is the likely impact. And a trial court and an appeals court overseeing the fairness of a trial has to care about that. Here was one instance that, again, came up today as judges were actually challenging Jack Smith's team on how far the limits would go, which is what you were mentioning, Mr. Arora, and Bill Barr's name came up. Take a listen.
Bill Barr goes on 60 Minutes and gives an interview and criticizes Mr. Trump's fitness for office, in part January 6th, the events related to January 6th. Mr. Trump can't go online and say, everything he just said is false?
If it's a direct attack on credibility or an inflammatory comment that's likely to result in threats and harassment, that's one thing. If it's just a generalized criticism of his performance as the Attorney General or disagreement with what he has said, I think that would be another.
Manny?
These are intelligent people arguing it, but I'm just telling you, down in the trenches, when you're actually doing the trial work, I've had very little success going to a judge and arguing First Amendment issues on a bond where somebody says, I can't believe a mom of four would testify against me or something to that, just that general. People get locked up every single day. If we go down this contempt issue because there's a gag order in federal court, that's a separate trial he's going to get because with a jury, and that'll just drag things out. So I respect what everybody's saying, but the reality is if you really think he's threatening people or witnesses or intimidating somebody, there isn't a First Amendment issue there anymore. You just have a bond revocation hearing, and that's how you take care of it. It'll stop everything.
And in a way, you're talking about how high a bar is it, but as you're saying, and that's where what you're saying overlaps with agreeing with some of the people we've heard from tonight, that if you pass that line, then that's that. I appreciate you saying the trenches. I don't know if you know, Manny, we had Lil Durk here on the show on Friday, and he always talks about the trenches of Chicago and his experience. And criminal defense lawyers, you might be around some of those issues. In closing, because we're almost out of time, Manny, I did want to give you the chance, if you want to respond on behalf of Chesbro, do you think he or any of the other unindicted co-conspirators still have exposure here, or do you look at Jack Smith as fast-tracking this March case and leaving those other people as basically witnesses in that case?
Can I give a shout out to Lil Durk? He was our client when there was a shooting case here in Atlanta some years ago, so I've gotten to know him pretty well. Now that
I didn't. Wow. So I didn't know that. It's live TV. So you were one of his criminal defense attorneys?
I was the lead counsel on that one where he's accused of shooting up everything outside in front of the varsity some years ago. But that's neither here nor there. There's no need to blow my own horn.
Well, you said you want to give him a shout out? Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just saying, hopefully he still remembers me from 3 or 4 years ago when they dismissed the charges against him. But I digress. With regards to a lot of this stuff, the other folks, not only is it Arizona that's investigating in Nevada, but DC. So there's potential exposure out there. But at some point, once a trial happens and if Trump is convicted, I don't know if the state cases are nearly as important with the amount of money and time and effort that they're spending. So as soon as a case can get started, it might resolve some of the other sort of tangential ones. And I think the federal one's the biggest one and probably the easiest one to prove.